Welcome to the best gambling show on the internet. This is the home of the money pick. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Week 1 Vegas spread picks dropping soon. I'm excited. Just posted my first bet of the season on Patreon. $5 a month. Come get this money with me. We were hot 2 years ago. We were even hotter last year. I expect even more money this year. And that's one reason why I'm doing these types of videos. Stats don't win bets. Stop using stats as a crutch. Stop using stats as an excuse. Listen, a lot of people just make stats with bets, or quote unquote their models. There's lots of people out there, you know who they are, and I've tracked them, and I've taken time out of my day to track them, and they don't win. And we should do anything that can win, but it just doesn't win. I'm going to say that rather simply, and I'll go through some reasons why. I think they use stats because of lack of knowledge of the game. NFL is the most complex sport there is. There is no sport more complex with more moving pieces than the NFL. It's extremely physical, and stats can't quantify the physicality of this game. And the first thing I'm going to say is stat guys really love two players, Carson Wentz and Kirk Cousins. Now go look at Kirk Cousins' season stats and go look at Carson Wentz' season stats last year. Both look like they had great, flourishing, vibrant years. But if you watch the film, you get down dirty, you see they're above average players, and for Carson Wentz, he's probably below average at this point. And listen, I like to use red zone stats and third down conversions. Those are two stats I use. Am I going to make a bet just because one team is terrible in the red zone against a very good red zone defense? No. There's going to be more factors. There's going to be more variables to that bet. But those are the two I like. I really think you should look at the red zone, look at what teams do on third down. Those are the two biggest. But let me just make one thing very, very clear. A lot of stats are irrelevant because of a thing that we all call garbage time. Now, garbage times can skew a lot of things. Points per game, passing yards per game, defensive passing yards allowed per game. If you're up 33-10, are you really going to be playing tight man-to-man coverage or risky zone coverage? No, you're going to be sitting back in prevent. You're going to let them dump it underneath for 10 yards at a time, and you're going to let the clock drip out. That's another reason. Also, a team gets the ball, they're down 10 points before the end of half. They get the ball at their own 5. They run up the middle with 10 seconds left and get 12 yards on that carry. Listen, those are what we call irrelevant outlier stats, but they factor into a lot of things these people do. Yards per game, that's the biggest misnomer it is. You could put up 500 yards per game. You remember the Matt Stafford team with Calvin Johnson, how they were putting up 500, hell, even 600 yards week to week in the NFL. How many games did they win? How good were they in the red zone? It didn't equal wins, and they kicked a lot of field goals. They had a lot of turnovers. Turnovers are the GOAT stat. Turnovers are a stat that you should always look to, but they're extremely hard to predict, and there's no stats model that can predict turnovers. Your own eyes have to predict them. So I've always hated the yards per game, and I never really liked the fact of how stats rated defenses, because they don't take into account the red zone. You can give up 400 yards in a game, and you can get out of there giving up, 10 points? Or giving up 12 points, all 4 field goals. The great defenses are teams that firstly force turnovers, and secondly, what is it? Stop teams in the red zone and make them kick 3-point field goals. So I never really like the way these stat guys look at defenses. I don't feel like they fully understand the tour de force, what a tour de force pass rusher can do. I don't think they understand when a player like Aaron Donald is in that middle, how you can throw all the stats from 2 weeks ago out of the window. You have to block that bull Aaron Donald, and there's just something you can't quantify with it. And look at the good quarterbacks in this league. Remember when Lamar Jackson was coming out of college and the stats guys were absolutely burying him, saying he can't play? Well, you know, who had to eat crow on that one? I'm not talking playoff Lamar Jackson, but there were some people saying he should switch positions based off stats. So, I mean, this is a game of gladiators. We don't need to overthink it. And I know stats are comfortable for people. Stats put a definitive solution on top of a problem. You want to know who the best defense is? Look at this stat. Don't watch the game. Don't watch the film. Don't watch the all 22. Just look at this little stat in a microscope, but you're missing everything that's flying around you. There's so much flying and swirling in an NFL game, but people want to take a microscopic view of these stats. And these stats, they simply don't work. And another thing with NFL football where I see the stat guys scratching their head and just throwing up their arms is, how do teams play differently in the weather? How does weather affect stats? How does going on the road affect stats? How does Kirk Cousins on a Monday night game against a good team affect stats? They affect the game tons of different ways. The only time I like listening to stat guys is when we're talking over and under. But a lot of the stat guys, they just don't get the flow of the game. I don't know if it's that they don't watch enough NFL football and they never played football growing up, but they just don't understand the flow of the game. And when you're betting over-unders, you have to understand the flow of the game. And listen, some people do take in a matchup, so I'm not trying to throw everyone out in the same blanket statement. But some of these guys, they don't even know about matchups. They don't even factor in what Jalen Ramsey is going to do to this top 5 passing attack. They don't factor in that, Joey Bosa's coming off the other side and hot, and the second string right tackle is out there. It doesn't matter how good you pass block or how many yards you throw for a game. If your starting right tackle is hurt and Joey Bosa is coming at you 35 to 40 times a game on the edge, that's going to have some problems. There isn't any stat model for that. There just isn't. And I just feel like people use it as a crutch. They use it as a way to sound smart, but in life, you're not going to have the answers to every question. Not everything you can summarize and put into a number. You just can't, and that's the glory of football. That's why football is beautiful. That's why it's so hard to predict, and that's why gamblers are the most stressed out people, but that's one reason why I keep getting money every goddamn year while these people just keep betting stats. Come get this money with me. Hit the like button. Share the videos. Lawson Bets NFL on Instagram. I'll let you know when week 1 is dropping. Just put a week 1 bet up on Patreon. Let's have some fun this year.